Good afternoon and welcome to the Firaxis livestream. I'm Pete Murray, joined today by Ed Beach, lead designer of Civ 6 Gathering Storm, and Brian Felges, Civ 6 Gathering Storm gameplay designer. And guys, we are here today to talk about the Ottoman Empire and their inclusion in Gathering Storm. This is one that the fans have been waiting a long time for.
And I've actually been waiting on this one because I've done a number of games with the Ottomans included in them. And always a huge fan of anything 16th century European type of history. And I worked on the Ottomans in Civ 5. And Civ 5 was a little bit tougher to kind of bring all the possible elements of glory that need to be in a civilization in. We didn't have quite as many abilities to play with. The Ottomans had two unique units in that one. So that sort of took up a lot of their slots in terms of what unique abilities they had. So I kind of, in Civ 6, I wanted to wait and make sure that we had all the tools in our arsenal to make a really amazing Ottoman side to play. And so here we have Barbary Corsairs, we have Janissaries, we have Suleiman, we have Suleiman's boyhood friend Ibrahim Pasha as his Grand Vizier. We have the Grand Bazaar. So it's just fully featured, just the Ottoman Civ just the way I want it to be.
It's definitely worth the wait,
yes.
I think.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday, practicing for the stream, all the cool stuff that you could potentially do with the Ottoman. And so we're going to show it off to you today, how they are in Civilization 6. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump in our game. And driving our game today is Karl, Scourge of Nations, Salter of Fields, Despoiler of Cities, Bringer of Lamentations. Driving a Civ that he's going to be very comfortable using the very conquest-focused Ottoman Empire here. So Ed, you want to kind of talk about what their suite of abilities gets us?
Okay, and I'll also sort of give the background of the game a little bit as well, because I started this game and then handed over to Karl. Once we got close to military action, I wanted to make sure we had our best commander in the field. So, so Karl has been prepping for our military onslaught. Now, we set up this game like we have been setting up the recent streams, where we put in all the civs that we've announced previously for Gathering Storm, so they're our opponents. We had one slot left, and we thought, well, who's a historical enemy of the Ottomans? How about Philip II Spain? So they're in our game as well. And we then just sort of let it play out to just sort of see who was going to be our antagonist in this game and who might be friendly.
Yep.
So we'll note that if we take a look at the map, that we're kind of sandwiched between the Mali Empire to our west. And then, although the Incans are nearby us, they're sort of separated by mountains and lakes, so we can't really directly go against them. But off to our northeast are the Hungarians. And the Hungarian Empire has done amazingly well in this game. If we want to quickly look at the scores, we can see how their score is.
Yeah, they're out of.
Yeah, they're kind of running away with it.
They're running away with it, and they basically have double our score.
Right.
So, this is the time we're about to enter the kind of glory period for the Ottomans. So we're in the Renaissance, and this is when we have to make our push.
Okay.
And so up until now, we were sort of playing a relatively vanilla Civ, but we get all our bonuses stacked in this type of part of the game. So we have to decide if we're going to win this game, we have to go against somebody, and obviously it's looking like Hungary.
But we're friendly with them right now. We have a declaration of friendship going.
So what happened was, I was looking at Mali and Hungary, and I was knowing I had to attack one of them or the other. And Hungary came across really friendly, and I accepted his declaration of friendship. And I could not set myself up to get Mansa Musa to like me at all. So what I ended up having to do was go with that and like keep the pressure off. So I made the friends with Hungary, but I just, decided I'm going to send out missionaries to both of those civilizations. I have the Crusader belief, so we're going to get combat bonuses near any city that follows Islam.
Okay.
And then it was just a matter of, well, how does this all play out? And Mali's score is down where we are. And so he's not really the person we need to be making up ground against.
All eyes are on
So I decided, I think our declaration, we actually had a declaration of friendship with Matthias recently, but that has gone ahead. We've let that lapse so that we can start prepping for war against him, because we're now just in the friendly state.
Well, it actually looks like he's massing some military units up there too. I mean, this is somewhat concerning. I see some Black Army units. I see some somewhat anachronistic chariots that are moving around up there too. But it's clear that if his score is that far ahead, he probably has a pretty sizable military going as well for this. So got a couple of questions that have come through us about Ibrahim specifically.
Great.
So people kind of want to know how he works. You know, this is an interesting governor with some interesting abilities going with him. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Like I think we really wanted him to be special because he's like the first Civ unique governor we've ever put in the game. And so, you know, just to have him kind of be an amalgamation of all the other ones or slightly different wasn't good enough. So he had to be very, very special. So one of the biggest things is that not only can he be placed in any of your own cities, he can be placed in city-states just like Amani the diplomat. But in addition to that, we've extended it to where you can put him in any city of a foreign, the capital of a foreign civ, as long as you're not at war with them.
Okay, well, can we bring up his promotions real quick so we can take a look at some of those? And then, Ed, you actually have an interesting naming convention for these as well, too. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, the cool thing about the way these were designed is they're set up so that each of the abilities here, you know, sort of represents what he was good at in real life. So he was not only the leader of Suleiman's military campaigns and also his provincial governor, helping put down revolts in Egypt and fighting against the Persians and so forth, but he actually moved up in the ranks of the Ottoman hierarchy steadily over the time that he was part of the power structure there.
He was promoted, so to speak.
Yes, promoted over and over again.
So it's kind of convenient here, yes.
So, you know, that was why we thought he was such a great example for our first unique governor, was because we could look at the history, we could tie in the history, we could come up with promotions that actually made sense because they were actually the names of titles that he held on his way working up the ranks. And it's actually really interesting because Grand Vizier, which is the final title here, he actually did not want to be given that title.
Yeah, that was his final title, but he did not want to be so engaged in all the politic at that point because he would have been a key player once you're Grand Vizier.
Right.
So,
he knew that everyone was going to be gunning for him and that it'd be all sorts of rivalries would develop. And Suleiman insisted, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. It turned out it wasn't.
Yeah.
But, oh well.
It's fine, we're bros, I got your back. If you don't know the story of Ibrahim and Suleiman, it's very much worth a read. Even if it's just a quick one on a Wikipedia page, you'll find up some really cool stuff.
We may devolve into some Ottoman
Sure, yeah, we might have some
but we want to
nice
get to the game
Ottoman
a little bit first.
Yeah, no
anecdotes this play, but let's get moving.
So, sorry, people have some other questions about Ibrahim, and as we get along, maybe we'll cover them a little bit. So I think it's very interesting in this game, for whatever reason, you couldn't get going on friendly terms with Mali. Traditionally, every time I played with them, you just send them a couple of trade routes, and
every time I play them, everybody loves me because they're trading with me, they're making tons of money, and I'm making tons of money. So I find it interesting too.
And they hadn't started a religion, so it wasn't a religious rivalry. That was the problem. We had Mount Everest right near our start location here, which is great for religion. Starting
religion, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of decided Islam could also be a part of our military conquest strategy. So with the right beliefs set up for it, so I just went ahead with that plan. But Hungary was sort of friendly out of the gate.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
We also have the. Didn't you say that we have the natural disasters?
Oh yeah,
all the way, or the
yes, they are.
So you're going to see a lot of natural disasters in today's stream. So volcanic eruptions.
We just saw one.
Things like that.
I maxed this out when I set up the game just to increase live stream drama.
Sure.
So as we were testing yesterday, for example, we had a drought blow through. Droughts will pillage farms and pastures in the area that they're in. They will not convert tiles to desert, but they will certainly impede your ability to get food going in your cities.
So I guess in going along with, I think you said you had some people asking some questions about Ibrahim. I think we can kind of go into sort of the basic design philosophy of his promotion tree.
Sure, yeah.
And of course, where we usually start with these things, or we like to start, which gives us a lot of good inspiration, is we like to start with the history of it. And as Ed already kind of touched on it, all the different levels and promotions that he had through time. But he was an excellent military commander. Often fighting alongside Suleiman, commanding a whole separate set of troops and things like that, and they're very successful in their conquests. But he was also an amazing diplomat as well. So with those two things in mind, that was kind of the inspiration to be able to send him to another civ, to a major civ's capital, and so the benefits that you get are mutual in that respect. So we kind of had sort of that we've done with some of the other governors, kind of two separate lines to the promotion tree, so to speak. Some like one of a more militaristic sense, and another one good for strengthening alliances and such. And we can later on, I think we can go and look at those exact things in his promotion tree in a little more detail later. But just wanted to kind of give a general overview of what our design philosophy was.
Right, and there's some detailed questions that we know we're going to be answering about how some of these things work, and we've actually thought about a lot of these things, and they actually tie into the history really well. I love how we just had a flood in the Hungarian Empire, because not only does it damage one of the border cities that we might be going up against, so it's not going to be at full defensive strength, but if people look carefully, there were also some floating icons coming up showing the new fertility added. That was like one of the little polish enhancements that we put in the game recently, just to kind of make it very clear to players that yes, their tiles are becoming stronger, and kind of give you an idea of exactly where that happened.
Somebody in chat wants to know if you can target Ibrahim in your capital as if he were an enemy governor using the neutralized governor attack.
I can't say I've ever tried that.
You almost wouldn't want to. I mean, you're going to be getting a lot of advantages from having it there.
So let's think about what, and we'll go into the history a little bit here as well. So Ibrahim has the ability to go into enemy capitals because typically he goes into capitals to try to either improve the friendliness there or to help out that friendly nation. So he does have a promotion that reduces grievances with that particular nation. But in general, he also has one of his early promotions helps military production there. And that actually applies to whatever civ. He's in. And so, oh boy.
Yeah, I was just watching we were talking about this.
We're going to have to interrupt our history lesson here and get back to the game because Matthias just declared a surprise war against us. Okay, so he was obviously thinking along the same lines we were, that it was time to get down and dirty. He's got the Black Army online. Luckily, I noticed that Carl did put Ibrahim in our border city here, and it looks like it's one turn until he is active with his bonuses. Which
will be good, because we'll need it at that point.
Yeah, so we should have, not in that city, but if we're attacking in a Hungarian city, we should have the Crusade bonus. In that city, we should have, anywhere within the tile range, we should be getting Ibrahim's bonus. So we'll have to kind of take advantage of all those things.
Well,
to fight, because I'm not sure we were really quite prepared to fight just yet. We do not have a Janissary online yet.
Hungary has their unique.
Turn away from
Hungary's got their unique unit. We do not yet have ours. So, and one of the other things, especially with city sieges and things like that, is it's important to get niter as quickly as possible for your Janissaries.
Right, and that's a key sort of bottleneck for the Ottomans as well, because they want to get their catapults upgraded to Mombards. And you need niter for that as well. So we're a little short on the niter here, but we'll have to see if Carl can pull us through.
Well, Carl was doing something very clever during yesterday's test, where he was managing upgrades very cleanly. So I think he's planning to use his swordsmen, upgrade them into Janissaries, because upgrading a swordsman into a Janissary will not cost a population, whereas recruiting one fresh will. So he's going to be able to get his household troops up in order fairly quickly. And then by strategically micromanaging his niter resources, it's going to be
he's going to
do some clever things.
It's a little bit of there's a little bit of finagling that needs to be done there, because basically, if you do not have enough resources in order to produce a certain unit, then it still keeps the previous unit unlocked, so that you're still able to build that, even if you can't build the one that demands resources. So through some creative gameplay, Carl was taking advantage of this and basically building the previous unit and then going and upgrading it so that he did not lose a pop. So
we're just
looking at him,
so
I think we had a...
And the Soroskar promotion, that was his title when he was fighting against Persia historically.
Correct.
And that is the one that lets his combat bonus project out from the city that he's in.
Which is going to be very, very useful here, making him almost like Victor in terms
now
of his
it's only
ability to
against
support that.
districts. So we're going to have to first defeat the Hungarian army in the field before we make the final push on the other cities. But that, along with the extra bombard strength, makes the Ottomans really, really good at taking down cities.
So even our catapults, which are nominally not as powerful as bombards, are going to be pretty effective here when they start attacking.
They're not these fancy, ornate Turkish bombards.
Yet. We'll get
Right.
Yet.
Right.
Yet.
Well, we were talking about that, right? Like, you know, about how it'd be so easy to make so many unique units for the Ottomans, in addition to the Janissary and
the Barbary
and
Corsair,
the Barbary
which is
Corsair,
coming
correct.
along as well.
So
Yep.
that was one of the ones too. Is like, oh God, would it be cool if they had a unique bombard, you know? But to be fair, we did model the bombard like visually
similarly,
after
yeah.
the famous Turkish bombards. So from
Kind of
history,
had that covered. Yep.
So Karl's going to be kind of fighting this two-front war. So there's kind of 4 cities involved here. Halep down in the lower left, Amasya right there, and Miskolc and Kosovar up there. That he's
Yeah,
gonna
either
be-
that or Abuda. I'm not sure which one.
Oh, okay.
Abuda has quite a few wonders in it, so taking that city would be nice.
Oh,
We've
take
got
it Chichen
Chichen and Angkor Wat.
Angkor, yeah.
Plus, we don't really have to worry about our left flank too much. We have that nice strategically placed encampment right at that choke point to really help defend from any attacks coming from that way. So yeah, the obvious choice is to go straight after the city with the with all those juicy wonders.
Yeah, and I love the map here because there are these lakes along our border, and whoever controls this border region is going to be able to set up a massive canal network.
Massive chain of canals out to the ocean.
later in the game.
So now that we have gunpowder, this is when the Janissaries start getting really interesting. So
we've created our first.
we've created our first one that's going to help our air score considerably. And now actually we're going to be in position to go into a golden era for the next stage when we transition through, which will be very useful for us.
I think we're in great shape. We're the Ottomans. Nobody's going to stop us.
Okay, it's costing us 7 niter per upgrade. So, you know, as long as we keep some swordsmen in the pipeline, we'll be able to, you know, continue to use the build the swordsmen and then upgrade them into Janissaries strategy. So there are definitely a bunch of ways to work with the Ottomans. In this particular game, and normally the way I like to play them is I like to conquer a few cities early, even though you don't have bonuses then, just to give yourself a base to recruit Janissaries, especially if you can get a high production city. Then I'll build an encampment there and use those to kind of be like a little Janissary
Factory.
Yeah.
but that didn't really happen in this game. We were sort of behind this mountain range. Everything was a little peaceful. We had plenty of territory to expand in, but you know that doesn't really hurt you. You've got ways to get your Janissary if you need them.
So when I was, you know, skimming through the forums yesterday, today, I was kind of getting the impression there still might be some questions about how the new strategic resource system works in Gathering Storm. I know we've touched on it before, and you talked about it. I think right here the cost for upgrading is 7 gunpowder to do so. Those costs scale with game speed, obviously. So, but there is a base cost basically that you pay for each unit, and that mechanic shifts a little bit. It goes from sort of an upfront cost that you pay when you first apply production to that unit, to later on to kind of what we call the fuel model, where your units actually consume resources per turn, almost as like a maintenance. So when you get into oil and coal, your units start consuming these resources per turn, much in the same way that the power is generated in the game, things like that.
Right, and that really starts to kick in sort of on the naval units after, like the Ironclad.
Yeah, the Ironclad starts using coal, but then as soon as you basically get into the modern era when oil's available, pretty much everything
land
uses
units,
oil.
it's tanks. And
Right.
Yeah.
So there was a line of tornadoes moved through. I don't know if you caught that. Right, just north of our city, kind of on the border between our kingdom and Hungary there, which was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, something about the history. It's like a tornado. I think a flood would have been more appropriate for a for an Ottoman
invasion of Hungary.
And for an Ottoman invasion, and going through history, it seemed like he was plagued by rains every time. I don't know if that was like a regional thing or just bad luck, but
you know, Carl, chat would like to point out to you that Mali is actually friendly now. If you wanted to be friends with them.
I was harassing Carl about keeping all those alliances going yesterday when we were testing it out as well, because it is important. Alliances are giving you favor per turn in Gathering Storm.
Which is hugely helpful.
Yeah, so each time you can keep another alliance online or push your alliance up to the next level, you get another point of favor per turn from it. So it's worthwhile investing in those alliances for sure.
Yeah, when I was playing, I've only played one game as the Ottoman, and I did my big early Renaissance, expansion push, and then could not manage diplomatic blowback from that for the rest of the game. Actually, I ended up getting a lot of grievance from the AI from it for continuing to occupy my cities, which I had rightfully taken from them.
Well, and just so people are aware of how that works, why don't we go ahead and talk about grievances a little bit? I don't think we focused on them in a recent live stream. So if we pull up Matthias's diplomatic record.
Ooh, we got our Corsair. We'll have to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. So if we pull that up, we can see there's a grievance log, and right now the first major diplomatic incident between our two nations was their surprise war declaration.
Correct.
Because it was a surprise war declaration rather than a formal war, it's 150 grievances instead of just 100. So that's probably worth 2, maybe even 3 border cities that we can go ahead and conquer from him without the world community getting upset. So I don't know if you were doing that in your Ottoman game. Maybe you were just attacking on your own. This is Matthias
I felt I was justified.
Offered us a great situation here because he initiated the attack, and we were maybe not 100% ready for it, but at least 75, 80% ready for it.
So, sorry, real quick, let's do a coastal raid and see if we can pillage some stuff here. So we got to
receive 66 science.
Yep.
And notice that did not take us any movement points, so we can also attack with the Barbary Corsair in the same move.
It's awesome.
Yeah, those guys are phenomenal. So we talked a little bit about how pillaging had changed in Gathering Storm in the last stream, and I noticed a couple days later that the forums were, oh my God, pillaging is going to be a dominant strategy in Gathering Storm. This is crazily unbalanced. And so just to be sure, I went ahead and I double-checked that 2 days ago and went through all the numbers again. And one key thing to note is that if you look at the way tech costs scale through our game, they go up by a factor of about 20 or 25 through the course of the game. So technology that's maybe only costs about 100 in the Ancient Era is up to the 2,500, somewhere in that range by the end of our game. So that 25 times scaling is not how steep the scaling is for what we're doing with the pillaging. So the pillaging only goes up by about a factor of 10 during the game. So even though it's much better than it used to be prior to Gathering Storm, where it was just a flat amount and it never went up, it's going to scale now, so it's going to feel a lot better, but it's not going to actually keep pace with the costs of technology or culture. So I think I misspoke a little bit last week. So I was talking about we were sort of aiming for if you pillage something and got a quarter or a fifth of a technology, that would be relatively constant throughout the game. That's actually not the way the math's going to work. It's going to be a little bit less good than that as you go through eras. And so that quarter or fifth of a technology that you get early in the game might only be, a sixth or an eighth or something like that by later in the game.
By the time you're, okay. All right.
So Carl looks like he's doing pretty well on this front.
So we have a question about the color schemes, the kind of the jersey system that we went to in this. So for example, in this game, You want to talk about Canada's color choice here.
So Canada is typically, and if you select Canada play, the game will make it a white background color with red text or primary color for the unit flags and symbols. But the Ottomans are too close to that.
Yes.
Because we have a primary, white background field with green lettering on top of it. So we didn't want to have, like, the mini-map would look like a mess if there was Canada right next to the Ottomans.
Yeah, it'd be hard to read.
Both had that white background color. So the Canadians, since they're not the civ that you have selected to play as a human, have been pushed to one of their
secondaries,
alternate jerseys.
They're away jerseys.
Right. So yeah, the Canadians are away here, and we're the home team.
So, and then actually, Carl, after you finish nuking those guys on shore, people have asked to see Akkad's bonuses, if you want to pull them up for a second, what they're providing. So this is a militaristic city-state.
Yep.
Okay.
And it sort of is the bypass the battering ram and siege tower kind of. If you got them allied, you can kind of skip that.
Gotcha. Will you be able to pick your away jersey as a home color when you're starting a game?
Yeah.
So you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's in the new setup screen. And if you're playing multiplayer, everyone can tune and you can
pick
everybody can be France,
in the lobby.
And all of their cities can be named Paris. But you'll be able to tell the difference.
Okay, so it is a Buddha, it looks like we're going after here. And it's going to be interesting to see whether Carl thinks he can just, bring it right down without having to besiege it first, or whether he's going to go and try to get military units on the backside of it, get it fully besieged.
Sorry, I got a Sweden-related question. Is the favor gained by Sweden for earning great people going to scale with game speed?
It does not.
It does not. I didn't think it did.
A lot of the one-shots of favor are sort of part of the turn-by-turn flow of things. Mm-hmm. It's not something that takes a while to build up, so things like favor from things that promising, those kind of things. If you're playing a longer game, you're going to get more instances of those, so we decided not to scale that one up.
It's got a lot of military units. There's a lot of Black Army coming down, quite a few Knight units coming down.
Yeah, it's going to be a little tricky to get the zone of control on all the hexes on the other side of the river there in order to set up a siege.
Be nice to get it, though. So I got a question about another Cyrus question. So we had one that was asked before the stream started, but do the changes to grievances affect Cyrus's leader ability to reduce the warmonger penalty from surprise wars?
Okay, that's a great question. And it's been a couple months since I implemented the changes here.
So think back, cast your mind back.
So I'm gonna, don't quote me on this precisely, but it affects both Cyrus and Alexander have, no, I believe it's and Gorgo's involved here as well. Yeah. I believe it was Alexander and Gorgo had leader agendas where they typically wanted you to be at war, and so they did not mind your warmongering.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure it was those two leaders that I set it up so that grievances decay twice as fast.
Okay.
With them, but I don't remember anything specific about Cyrus being done at the same time.
Okay.
I do know that, we underwent changes with them, basically trying to model it to the new system. So
right. So that was basically what the effect was. That
it's interesting because like a lot of times when with iterative design, you might lose touch, or another designer might have taken on that task, and you forget where we ended up on that one, And so it's like you have to kind of go back and remind yourself. So.
But I know that the basic idea was that those leaders that feel like war is more of a normal state of being and they respect you for it and so forth, that the way that works in the new grievance system is they forgive grievances faster.
Right. Carl, you're not pillaging the whales. You're managing to only hurt humans this time and not all life, as you're typically inclined to do. No, I'm just giving Carl a hard time. No,
Carl, have you been naming your units? We were giving you a hard time about that.
Yeah, you have to
The
storm dogs. That's right.
There we go.
That's
Good.
right.
Thank
Do you
you.
actually like choose names for your units? The first gunners.
You mean you just accept
Oh
the
yeah.
first
I mean, unless
suggestion?
it's like really nah.
Something else people might not know is you can actually just go in and type whatever you want in there
Yeah,
too.
but what's the fun? The game does a better job.
Well, and the military units you don't have to name, but one of my favorite changes for the rock band is when you have a rock band, it has to be named.
Yes. Yeah.
It will not perform. There's actually grayed out text, will not perform until you give it a suitable name.
Nice. 2 more questions about grievances. Do they have any effect in multiplayer?
We are working on some things with grievances so that they do have effect on human players. One thing that we put in very recently is the way that the loyalty hit when you take a city worked is it used to be a flat penalty for occupying a city. And now that one scales based on how many grievances you have with the player. So it's definitely an area we're looking at, trying to integrate grievances so that they have sort of effects, not just in terms of diplomatic relationship, but elsewhere in the game. And that's the one example we have of that right now.
Gotcha. And there's no limit on the number of grievances you can generate?
It actually is much friendlier than the warmongering system in terms of the warmongering system just go out of hand. And if you just kept conquering things over and over again, you would get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of negative diplomatic modifiers.
It was the price of doing business.
Right.
It was, yeah. I called it the Roman tax.
There is no limit to how many grievances you can rack up, but the way it gets converted to diplomatic modifiers, there is a maximum. So people can hate you for being a warmonger only so much. At some point, they're just like,
you cannot frustrate them anymore.
Right. So I think we've played with those numbers a little bit, but I think it was like between you directly warmongering against that person and then also the third-party effects, you could get maybe about a minus 100 diplomatic modifier, but it doesn't go nearly as high as it used to.
So Suleiman had quite the interesting life, obviously, and he wasn't called Suleiman the Magnificent for nothing. So this is interesting here. I mean, obviously we've kind of set the stage with Hungary, but you know, that was one of his first conquests as a leader, and so it's interesting watching how this plays out. And we'll see if
the only thing I kind of wished was I wish the Valletta city-state was in here, so that he would have to fight the Hungarians and the Knights of St. John, the Knights Hospitaller at the same time, since that's sort of how he opened his campaign once he took over as Sultan.
So you want to just tell that story real quick while Carl lays siege to Miskolc?
Okay, so not only did he have to fight the Knights of St. John once on the island of Rhodes.
On Rhodes, right.
Because they were just interdicting all the Ottoman shipping on the Eastern Mediterranean. But once he finally got them to capitulate, he thought they had fought so honorably that he let them leave with all their possessions and so forth. And they set up shop yet again on Malta, and that's how they became, the city of Valletta grew up, being protected by those knights. And that's how we decided it was worthy of putting in as a city-state here. So that's why I was hoping Valletta would be in the game. The other cool note about Valletta is I love its ability, because it's one of the ways you can take faith and kind of take it out of the religious
use it to build the walls, right?
And you can use it in the rest of the game. So it allows you to build all the city center buildings with faith. That's been its ability all the way along.
Right.
And it's great for walls because you can instantly build walls. Typically, walls have to be hard built. They can't be bought with gold.
This is a way to purchase them.
But this way you can purchase them.
Yep.
Now, what's really interesting in Gathering Storm is the flood barrier, which is your key thing to stop against climate change, is also a city building. And so and it's also,
and we also do not allow you. We don't allow you to instantly build those.
Them.
Yeah, purchase them.
Right. They have to be built unless you go to Valletta and say, Valletta, I want to be your suzerain because I know that you have a connection to a divine power that's going to help me get walls instantaneously.
I believe I will build these walls.
That's the one way you can get flood barriers very, very quickly. Have enough faith. Have Valletta as your faithful ally, and then go that route.
That was something when I was reading up too on the Knights Hospitaller and Valletta and the forts that they built on both Rhodes and on Malta. And I was surprised to find out that a lot of the stone that they used in building up those fortifications was actually taken from the ruins of the mausoleum of Halicarnassus.
Yeah.
So, which I just thought was cool because I mean, obviously that's a wonder in this game, and kind of makes me wish that like that whole salvaged production thing, you know, get that going to build up.
It was finished.
So someone beat you to the mausoleum or beat the knights to it.
Right, right.
But they used that extra.
Yeah, should that be an achievement? Yeah, we should write some crazy achievement like that, huh?
Yeah. Carl, chat is going crazy to see Reyna, the financier, the governor's.
He was.
Yeah, he was mousing
over some of her abilities earlier. So I think we've pretty well covered most of that.
Unless somebody has a specific question.
I think they're just interested in the suite of them. So if we have a moment
probably
after
get
the
the
conquest.
screenshot of the whole screen, so we can document it that way. So what's our Barbary Corsair been up to? It's sort of languishing on the southern coast. I'm wondering if it has any targets further up the coast that we can hit.
Yeah,
Right.
like I mean, they're
Screenshot
Corsairs.
in a quick-
They need to be going harassing,
They're
Absolutely.
very speedy
wreaking
ships.
havoc.
And yeah, I never.
They're
did
getting-
get a chance
they're getting
to explore
bored.
there.
There was a famous, I'm trying to remember his name, like one of the most...
Barbarossa.
Barbarossa, that's right.
So it's interesting because one of the reasons we decided the Ottomans were so worthy to get the unique governor was they actually had 3 different historical candidates, even just within Suleiman's reign,
Right.
for historical figures that would have made great, very interesting, unique governors.
So for you modders out there, this is something you might want to consider.
Or if everyone decides that the mod community goes nuts and they want to add a unique governor to every civ, well, don't
Have fun with that.
have fun with it, but don't skimp on giving the Ottomans a second unique governor.
There you go. They get 2. Yeah.
Right.
If they're the only one that has one,
Barbarossa was
else.
one of our candidates who not only led the Corsair fleet for Suleiman, but also set up all his North African possessions and governed those provinces. He actually was part of working with Ibrahim on alliances with the French.
Right.
And so one of the coolest things in Ottoman history was they had such a tight alliance with the French that the French offered to house the entire Ottoman fleet in southern France along the Riviera for one winter.
Yeah.
And they just took over the town, and it was just an Ottoman naval base for the time. So, the French got a lot of grief from the rest of Europe for how friendly they were with the Ottomans. But, I think it was the stage was all set with Ibrahim's diplomacy. So we felt like things like giving the bonus for Ibrahim to allow an ally to get a production boost was totally justifiable.
Makes sense.
There was all sorts of Ottoman bombards and other military equipment that they lent to the French. So we kind of felt like that was justifiable.
Now, there's one very subtle thing Carl is doing here with his production. You'll notice that he's still got the option to build swordsmen despite us having discovered gunpowder. And since he can't talk for your safety, I'm going to tell you what he told us yesterday, which was
on our build list.
He's
Sweet.
He's been building swordsmen because he doesn't have enough niter on hand to outright build a janissary. So what he's doing is he's building swordsmen, and when he gets just enough to promote or to upgrade one to janissary, he does that. And then that allows him kind of the ability to take the cheaper to produce unit and then upgrade it using various
Mali
tricks.
trade routes.
Yeah.
Four Mali traders coming across our empire at once. All right, so
money,
let's
money.
focus on Abuda. We did not get it under siege, but we're still doing fine with our artillery and our janissaries.
Yeah, the walls are almost down. We're chipping away at the
Yeah, but we're going to lose.
main health of the city.
The Ottoman Great Bombard ability, does that affect battering rams and siege towers as well, too? Does that benefit those? No, because they're not.
No, those are support units, and they work a little differently. It's
Okay.
we sort of have these 2 separate. We always have to
Layers.
clarify when we talk about siege units in meetings and things like that, because there's basically 2 types. But this is the type that's the military bombardment type of like catapults, bombards, etc.
Well, it seems that, we denounced them. I didn't even notice Carl doing that.
Well,
Nice.
It's Philip.
Yeah, it's very appropriate.
It's also Carl.
It's fun. It's fun to make him
We should
angry.
be at war with Spain.
I have a feeling that if it's up to Carl, that will happen. So who was the other person that you were considering? So we've got Barbarossa.
And then Suleiman's second wife,
Yep,
Roxolana, was his clear favorite. She had huge influence in the Ottoman court.
Yep.
She and Ibrahim ended up not really getting along. And it was because she looked at him as a threat to Suleiman's power that she finally convinced Suleiman that he had to...
She managed to put a wedge between him and his best friend.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a sad. It's kind of a sad.
I look at it
tragic,
as a sad story
tragic
as well.
story.
Although she, was from the, I believe, from the Caucasus region, and she was a very, interesting person in her own right, and so definitely also worthy of being a governor. And if you go to Istanbul, there are buildings and museums and mosques named after her and Ibrahim and plenty for Suleiman, of
Ibrahim's,
course, as well.
I mean, palace is still, and her palace are both still intact.
Right.
Oh, Pachacuti's mad at you because you're settling your mountains.
And those are his mountains everywhere in the world.
They're all
They're all my mountains.
Exactly.
I love the mountains here, though, because they gave us, just the campuses and the holy sites all have amazing
Like, can you make terrace farms?
It's something I just love
Keep your paws off
about
them.
the difference. I mean, about in Civ 6 is that, obviously it was intentional that terrain played more of a role in your gameplay. But I love the way the mountain ranges are composed and how they work and within the game and how players can use them to their advantage.
We should have Carl
especially with tunnels, kind of when we went over
actually,
with that live stream.
If you pan over to the Incan Empire, we can see that they have started putting in their mountain roads.
Yeah, you can see that little the icon for the Kapak Non right there. Yep.
So Pachacuti's got it figured out how to get through those mountains.
Yes.
How many tiles can a canal traverse, and is there a limit on the types of naval units that can pass through a canal?
Okay, there's no limit to the types of naval units. Even aircraft carrier can sail through canals.
They hold their breath.
Yep, real tight.
Real tight. Think narrow thoughts.
So the basic rule is canals have to be joining things on either side that are considered water tiles.
Yes.
And a city center can act as a water tile, so you can hook up a city center through one land tile and then get that city out to the sea. But what you can't do is build sort of speculative canals across the land that aren't hooking into anything.
Yes.
Each time you build one, you have to have connection points on either side of it as well. And the only way you can cross something that's as large as like a 3-tile gap is if you get the Panama Canal Wonder.
Correct. Is it possible to send boats through tunnels and the Kapak Non? No.
No.
Can you enter?
Creative idea,
Yeah.
but not possible.
Good try.
Yes.
What was that? Never mind. Never mind.
The Golden Gate Bridge is interesting because it works as sort of a reverse canal because land units stay in their land form. They don't embark to go across it. So you're going across, that's land units going across water just like naval units are going across.
So we have finished researching banking, so we have access to the Grand Bazaar now, so we can start building that. This is the Ottomans' unique
purchase a Grand
infrastructure.
Bazaar? That might be a little too expensive, I think.
We're not made of gold. Janissaries cost money.
2 turns we can purchase one.
Yeah.
So.
But this war is costing us a lot of money, so.
But we're conquering Hungary finally.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess Suleiman was able to at least make Hungary into a vassal state for a while.
Oh yeah.
But I never made it to Vienna, which was his ultimate objective. So, it's sort of a mixed bag in terms of his campaigns through Hungary.
In the end, it all ends up being something about Austria and Hungary, right?
That was the joke in high school. Was if you didn't know what to answer on the European history test, the answer was always the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Yes,
It was,
exactly. Yeah, because they were kind of a thorn in his side. You know, he was looking for ways into Europe. He was
There we go.
There we
All
go.
those wonders are ours. Did we captured 3 wonders? It looks like the Oracle was just outside the border. But
Yeah, we didn't get the
Angkor
Oracle,
Wat,
but we Angkor Wat and
Chichen Itza.
Chichen Itza. Now, the city's not super
I
thrilled
think the
about it.
Hanging Gardens is there to the east, too, as well.
Oh,
underneath
yeah, it
our
is.
pike.
Right.
So where did we have Ibrahim at this point? We just took that city
So Ibrahim's been in
This would be
Amasya,
the
which-
right time to move him
to
forward.
move him to Abuja.
Yeah.
Now,
I think.
because he only takes 3 turns to reestablish himself, you know.
Yeah, he's a
that kinda-
fascist establisher like the Castellan. in
Right, that
regard.
allows us to, you know, maybe we'll take a turn or 2 to regroup our military before we take the next city, or maybe not. It looks like Carl's going right for it. But
Yeah, he's just confident. But you know, you get that extra bonus.
So much pillaging.
and he,
Oh,
I love
oh.
the coastal raid ability to just take a snipe a barbarian camp right
Yeah.
from the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, you guys took all that time positioning your units.
That's the other thing.
Sure would be a
That's the other
shame
thing
if
is,
somebody
yeah,
sniped out from underneath you.
Just sending out like, you know, sending out your units that can pillage early, and you can also pick up goodie huts. I don't know if that's necessarily a well-known strategy, but
I always use it when I'm playing Norway.
oh yeah. And then of course, you know, you can get the credit for clearing out barbarian camps on
Right. So there's
remote
arrow
islands
score
and things like that. So
that
those go toward your era score.
it's-
So
if
there's
it's
lots of
early in the
different
game.
ways it helps you out.
Yep.
In, you know, in addition to the yields you get from it. He's still got
So
quite
I think
a few
the
cities
one
here.
story we haven't told from our Ottoman story,
Ottoman story hour.
Yeah.
story hour is
Oh!
we.
Oh, is
Oh.
he negotiating for
Wants
peace?
Yeah.
Carl's not going to get peace.
Refuse. See,
Yeah.
because that's talking about the Ottomans. See, like, you know, when he would let peace happen or he'd let people go free, it always came back to bite him later. You know, when he let the remnants of the Knights
Okay, so
Hospitaller
this is interesting.
go
we should
away.
Go through a little
Oh, yeah.
carefully through this.
Sure,
so
sure.
because of our conquests, finally the world has noticed that we're going on a bit of a rampage here. And so
It
a
is
military
Carl.
emergency is being proposed against us. And we're not the strongest diplomatic player. You know, we were encouraging Carl to keep those alliances healthy so we could get as much favor as possible. But it looks like there are at least 4 other nations that have more favor than we do. So I think Carl go all in on this one to try to block it.
Yeah, because you really don't want...
Okay, so we'll put 4 votes in to block it because otherwise everyone that joins us is at war with us. So let's see how this comes out. A volcanic.
I'm sure this is fine.
It's turned all the way up. It's
not
Yeah,
an
but
omen.
the World Congress session was a little explosive this
Yeah,
time, I think.
I'm sure it does.
Contentious diplomacy.
Frank and Oben.
And it passed
oh
against
boy.
us.
Oh boy.
So Pachacuti, Matthias, and Laurier. And Laurier always likes to join emergencies.
He does, yeah, so we should have
sort of
known
his
that he would have
agenda.
gone.
So they're going to be at war with us. So luckily they're all in the same direction, I believe. We just keep going north, right?
Yeah. Well,
So, and we had not played this out ahead of time. We had no idea that this was going to.
no. This
Come
is
up.
this
So
is
this
one
is
of the beauties
new
is that the
territory.
games start to diverge over time.
Yeah.
So,
So-
Carl, when you have a second, we'll check the score to see how much we've dinged into Hungary's lead here. Ah,
Took a little bite out of him.
He's
but-
definitely not twice us anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
we've
Moving in
gone
the right
a
direction.
lot further
And
than
look,
he's gone
the
back.
3 guys that declared against us are on the leaderboard ahead of us.
so they
So those are the ones we want to be fighting as well.
right.
It's just, is it going to be a problem if they combine
They will
forces?
serve only to enrich our legend.
So anyways, our last Ottoman story, I'm just going to tell people to look it up.
Sure,
Look up the story of Julia Gonzaga.
because that also is a Barbarossa story.
That's a Barbarossa story.
Oh,
it's
right.
an
Yeah,
Ibrahim
okay.
story.
Yep.
It's a Roxolana
I'm remembering
story.
this one now.
Yeah.
And it's very tied in with the Barbary Corsairs. It's a very dramatic story. It was an attempt by Ibrahim to kind of improve his position by
Swiping right.
by getting Suleiman interested in a different woman than Roxolana. So it's definitely worth a read.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, there were definitely some maneuvering and some competition between those two.
There always is in the Ottoman Empire, and the worst thing to be is one of the sons that's not chosen to be next in line.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. So it looks like we're going to be able to hold on to Abuda pretty well, actually. And there's nobody. I mean, I don't see any armies immediately coming in with those mountains to protect us. Our new conquests are going to be able to hold.
We could condemn the Incan religious units that are coming towards us now, too.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Now, I believe it was a cultural alliance that Karl made with Christina.
Yes.
So she's not going to jump in to fight for us, I don't believe.
Nope. And an economic one with Mansa Musa.
Okay.
And he's...
But better to at least have them in an alliance than joining the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And hating us for their
and people
conquest.
can kind of, if you decompose what happened to that World Congress session, because we'd gone to the trouble to either declare friends like we did with Coupe, or set up alliances with those other leaders, then when the emergency kicked in, it was everyone else joined it, but we at least had a few people that were willing to back us.
And there was no... They would have lost more by joining that emergency. They would have lost out on the advantage of joining the alliance and for the dubious opportunity
the AI
to
is
win.
just, we have spent a fair amount of time. We're continuing to improve it, but we spent a lot of time trying to make sure that the AI is voting in a very rational way at these World Congress sessions, and because that's sort of an important part of getting the World Congress the right feel. So there are a lot of routines that run to evaluate in this particular situation what makes sense for this AI to be considering.
So we only have to hold out for drought. Oh, that's not good. And pillaged one of our paddocks and one of our farms, it looks like.
And that is an area of an empire that sort of doesn't have much vegetation. So it's the kind of thing that is going to get hit with drought.
Yep. And we only have to hold out for 23 more turns, which I put war in Karl's capable hands.
23 more turns until
the military emergency expires.
Oh.
And then, well, not the end of the stream, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was about to
We all have to go back to work. We're not going to be able to play 23 turns out.
It looks like a fun 23 turns,
it's going to be a good one to try to keep.
And notice Buda itself, the Hungarian capital, is not following Islam yet. So that's why Karl is...
We're working on that right now.
Yeah, he's got a joint military religious force all trying to work on bringing that one down.
So how does joining emergencies affect the grievance system? So will joining an emergency generate grievances against another player?
It does not.
It does not. Okay, because it's sanctioned by the world. It is a World Congress. Okay. Are the World Congress resolutions era-specific? Can we choose which ones pop up? They're random in terms of which ones come up, and there are specific ones that are tied to
they are
specific
constrained by era. It's very similar to what people would be used to from Rise and Fall's dedication system.
Okay.
So, each of those different dedications typically has 2 or 3 eras that it's allowed to come up with that, that make sense historically. And the resolutions work the same way. Now that we have 9 eras, I think probably most of them span maybe 3 or 4 eras.
Okay.
And I think the dedications might be a little bit more than 2 or 3 for some of them. But you don't have like climate accords in the Middle Ages.
Right. It's more of a what's appropriate for the age that you're in at that point, as far as
so we looked at each one, and then we kind of made
carbon dioxide hasn't been invented yet. Don't at me. I know. It was a joke. People want to know if they can mod their own governors in. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. That functionality has always been in since we introduced them. I mean, I've said it before, but we always try to take
you can improve that a little bit with unique governors.
Right. We've extended we've extended that with unique governors. When Rise and Fall first came out, it was kind of a basic implementation. The promotions were very specific to each leader, to each governor, and so But we made that so that you can come up with your own promotion trees. They can be linked to, you can make a promotion collection. You can mix and match them all you want. So the modability of governors across the board, and it should be fairly easy to mod them as well. I mean, it's all in data changes and things like that. Very, very little of it is completely hard-coded.
Pachacuti, the Earth Shaker, he's making the Earth shake in his empire. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. What happened?
Volcanic eruption.
Ooh. Will volcanic eruption stack with a river flood? It will, won't it?
It does not actually.
Oh.
Because it starts to become like, what did this come from in terms of their fertility? So the way it works is the volcanoes get placed down first, I believe, and all the non-impassable tiles around the volcano get marked as volcanic targets. And then when I'm going through and marking all the floodplains, I'm looking for a river that has 4 to 10 passable, not hilly tiles. And if I find that, that becomes a floodplain.
Okay.
But the volcanic target tiles are excluded from the floodplains. Now, the only exception to that is we just added a capability for if you turn the disaster setting up to level 3 or to level 4, volcanoes can strike tiles in terms of dealing damage 2 tiles away.
Ooh.
And that can hit your floodplain tiles. So tiles can take damage from both a flood and a volcano if you have that setting, if the disaster intensity slider is set up to a 3 or a 4.
Gotcha. Where in the tech tree does the Barbary Corsair unlock? People have asked.
Well, we'll let Carl show that, because that's a good question. It's sort of on the same direction as going to Privateer. It's just a little bit earlier.
Happens earlier, yep.
Okay, so here they are at
stop,
Medieval
stop,
Fairs.
Medieval Fairs.
And it's 2 technologies, or 2 civics later. Mercantilism is when the Privateer
would normally come
on.
Okay.
The Corsairs, they taught pirates how to pirate, right?
It was, legally privateering.
They're the OG
legally
pirates.
Sanctioned.
The crazy thing about the Barbary Corsairs is they were still a thorn in the side of the United States when the United States was first putting a navy up.
Yeah, it was necessary to go from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Yeah, that's against
Okay,
the
I did not know
Corsairs.
that.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
So they were
you've done some studying up on the Corsairs, haven't you?
We have a few books on the Barbary Corsairs.
Okay, cool.
To be fair, they're fun reads.
Yeah.
There was a question about how war weariness and grievances interact with each other.
Okay, so it's similar to the previous system that based on the casus belli you have for the war,
right?
That's going to be sort of a like either a multiplier if it's a case of a surprise war, or decelerator in the case of you have a really good casus belli. So when you go into a war, what you do, the grievances will be adjusted based on the casus belli, and that's also true of the war weariness that's picked up. So war weariness is much more a factor of how the combat's going. Are you winning the combats? How many times have you had units killed? Those kind of things. But then those are all accelerated or decelerated by the casus belli. So your people are tolerant of more losses in a war that they feel is justified. But if the casus belli wasn't there, then they're going to get tired of the war sooner. So they are definitely related, but it's not like a grievance causes a war weariness point or anything like that.
You know who never wearies of war?
I'm waiting for this one.
Carl.
That's
that
true.
guy.
He just denied another
like
peace
another
offering.
hour, right?
Yeah,
I want to complete the conquest.
Yeah, no, we're going to have to leave that on that note. Unfortunately, we're going to leave Matthias shaking his fist in impotent rage as Carl continues to conquer his kingdoms and as we attempt to bide our way through the military emergencies. So that's been a look at the Ottoman, this incredible Renaissance-era military conquest powerhouse, to look at the abilities that they bring. So don't forget, Civilization VI Gathering Storm is coming out on February 14th, just a little over 2 weeks from now. That's very exciting for us here. Hope you've enjoyed this first look at this new Civ, and stay tuned. Look for us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, your other favorite social media sites, and for more news on Gathering Storm. Thanks for watching today.